Hey you guys, welcome to my first ever Pilates YouTube workout. My name's Jessica, you can call me Jess if you'd like. I have been teaching Pilates for about 6 years now, and I'm super excited to finally start posting Pilates workouts on YouTube so that you can work out whenever, wherever, and however I tell you to, because I'm the instructor and you've got to follow me. Just kidding. I want you to listen to your bodies during all of my Pilates workouts, during all of your Pilates workouts if you do Pilates outside of just YouTube here. Listen to your body, take your modifications, take your breaks as needed. All of my workouts, I'm going to layer on options. So take the option that works for you. Feel free to stick with that level or follow me along for the next progression as we go. Today's workout is going to be just a 30-minute foundational Pilates workout. So we're going to go over some of the basic principles and just kind of tune into your body, start to build up your mind-body awareness, and just start learning all of the Pilates language that we have. Now, if it's a lot for your brain, no worries. I'm gonna keep going and refer back to all of these things throughout all of my workouts. So you'll start to learn these things deeper and deeper as you go. Just try your best to follow along. If you get the breath confused or backwards or forget to breathe altogether, no worries. That's the biggest thing people say when they're learning Pilates is they forgot to breathe, and that's totally fine. It's not natural to think about your breath so much. So with that being said, I'll stop rambling, listen to your bodies, take it at whatever pace feels best for you. And we're just gonna build our foundation here so that you can get the most out of your Pilates workouts going forwards, whether you're completely new to Pilates or have been doing it for years. Let's go ahead and get started, shall we? All right, we're gonna start lying flat down on our backs. Get yourself situated. Now, before we get into the actual workout, we're just gonna warm up with some of the Pilates basic principles, just a little bit, kind of get our mind familiar with the Pilates terms or refamiliarized if you're used to Pilates. So, very first, let's start with your breath. Let's put the hands on the sides of the ribs, stick the elbows out wide to the sides. Feel free to close your eyes. And then we're just going to inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth. Inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth. Notice how on that inhale you can feel the air expanding into the sides of your rib cage. Exhale, notice how your core naturally tightens up. Not only is that air expanding into the sides of the ribs on that inhale, but also the backs and the front. So it's a three-dimensional breath pattern. And then that forced exhale, engaging the core, is part of the reason why we breathe like this in Pilates. You're likely going to get the breath mixed up or backwards if you're new to Pilates. No worries, just keep breathing. I'll remind you of your breath as you go. If you get it backwards, it's not the end of the world. Next, let's just go over pelvic placement a little bit. Let's place the hands on top of the belly so that you've got your thumbs touching the bottom of your ribs and your fingertips touch your hip bones. From here, just notice where you're naturally laying. Now, a little tightness around the core. You're probably feeling like the tailbone's heavy. There's a natural little gap behind the low back, most likely. We call this neutral. You can think of it as neutral natural, so where you're naturally laying for the most part. Now, imprint is where there's no longer that tiny little space behind your low back. Instead, the low back flattens a little to the floor and the tail tucks. Let's just rock back and forth between those two positions. Exhale, find your imprint. Inhale, return to your neutral. Now, as you're rocking back and forth, you'll notice the fingertips and the thumbs going closer together. And then as you rock back to your neutral, you'll notice that space increases. That's why we're feeling that out, to notice physically what that feels like on us. Let's combine that with your breathing. Use your exhale to tuck the tail, flatten that low back, find that imprint. Inhale, neutral. Watching that you're not just pushing through your legs to find imprint, but instead legs stay relaxed and it's your abs that are responsible for that little gentle tuck of the tail. If you're very confused, you can imagine like there's a marble on your pubic bone, and then as you imprint, roll the marble to the belly button. As you find neutral, marble goes back to the pubic bone. Okay. Now, moving into our exercises, let's place the arms long by your sides. Maybe scoot your feet a little bit closer towards your bum, ankles pretty much underneath your knees. And your knees and ankles are also in line with the center of your hips. From here, let's initiate by tucking our tail, then peel your hips all the way up off the floor into a bridge. Pause at the top, and then melt your spine all the way back down, bone by bone. Release to neutral at the bottom. Go through your imprint, peel up, driving down through the heels. Pause at the top, and then lower yourself down. Connecting your breath into that motion, let's exhale, tuck the tail and roll up. Inhale, stay at the top. Exhale, melt down. Bone by bone. Releasing to your neutral at the bottom. Inhale as you release. Exhale again, roll up. Inhale, we hold. Exhale, melt your way down, bone by bone. Now, as you're doing this, can you press down a little bit deeper through the upper arms? Feel how that opens up across the collarbone, and feel how that supports you here. That way the glutes and hamstrings have a little bit of help from the arms. And at the top, make sure that your body weight is centered between the shoulders, not so much on your neck, okay? You're not pushing yourself up as far as possible. Instead, just to where your weight's on your shoulders, and just to where your ribs are not flared up to the sky. Keep just going up and down at your own pace there, and I'll continue giving you some helpful tips. Exhale, rolling up. Find that nice long line from your shoulders all the way to your knees at the top, watching that you're not arching and coming out of that line, and then melt down. Also totally fine if you're not getting the hips up super, super high. This is a lot for the glutes and hamstrings, and if your hamstrings are not used to this, give them a shake, take a breath, release those cramps, whatever you got to do. My hamstrings and glutes are certainly warming up here. So we'll just go for a few more like this. We're trying to just go up to that long line at the top because that's where the glutes and the hamstrings have the most tension. If we go higher than that and pop the ribs, the work goes into the low back, which is not the goal here. So that's why we're only going to that long line. Now at the top of this next one, let's hold it up nice and high. Tuck the tail a little higher between the legs, soften the ribs down. Notice the core turned on supporting you. Then from here, let's just lift your heels and then lower your heels. Calf raises. Heels go up and down. Keep squeezing those glutes, keep them up nice and high. And we'll just go for another 4. 3, maybe barely touching down each time. 2. And 1. Now let's keep the heels lifted. Lower one heel down, lift it back up. Lower the other heel, lift it back up. Alternating, but the hips still stay high and they stay level. Nice and stable. It doesn't have to be a specific breath pattern here. Just keep breathing. And we'll continue for another 4. If you're feeling it in your low back, maybe try to tuck the tail underneath you a little bit more. Okay, now our last one, let's leave one heel down, hinge at your hips and put them halfway down, then lift straight back up. Hinge halfway down, squeeze and lift, driving through that heel on the floor. It's almost like a supported single leg bridge here. Giving us lots of layers through this workout today. Take what works for you and stick with whatever level you're at. We've got another 5, 4, 3, 2. Last one, switch those ankles and then continue with those dips. Driving down through that floor heel especially, getting a nice good burn there. And we only have another 5, 4, 3, 2. Are you still pressing down through those upper arms? And last one, lift your heels. And you keep them lifted as you roll back down. And then at the bottom, give your knees a nice hug. Maybe grab the back of your legs and stretch. Oh, good heat build up through the back of those legs. Oh my goodness. Next, we're gonna actively stretch the hamstrings a little bit in just a second, but first a little bit of ab work to warm us up. So let's bring the legs in the air so that you've got knees directly over top of your hips. Tabletop, we call this. You're stabilizing imprint. The tail's tucked a little, low back is probably all the way down. It's okay if it's not, but probably it is. And your core is just really engaged even here. Let's have our hands on the ribs and the hips just to notice what that feels like. And then we'll start with the toe tap motion. So for your toe taps, you're keeping the knee bent to 90 and you're opening up from your hip. Use your exhale. Inhale, lift, exhale, toe tap. We call that a toe tap, but really you're not just hinging at your knees and trying to touch the floor. You're opening from your hip and you're only going so far away that you can hold stable through your imprint. Keep that connection really strong between the ribs and the hips. Notice how just by going within that range where you can hold your stability, you get a really good ab burn. As soon as we go past that stable point and the low back tries to lift, we're actually taking away from that ab work. This is why we focus so much on form in Pilates, just so that you can get the most out of what you're doing. Finish off with one more per side. And with your last one, you can put your foot all the way down, rest the second leg, and maybe rock the knees, do whatever feels good for you after that. And then we'll continue working the core a little bit more. Next, let's do a few ab crunches. Let's have arms long by your sides. And we'll start with the feet down, just nod the chin. And then pick up the head and shoulders, flexing up. And then lower yourself right back down. We call this ab prep in Pilates. Not that you need to know any of the names, but in case you're curious. Now, one of the other Pilates principles is head and neck alignment. So that means that as you're moving the rest of your spine, your neck should follow in the same line. That's why to initiate this, we start with the chin tuck, then we flex up, and that way your whole upper back and into the neck are flexed. And it's gonna feel a whole lot nicer on your neck to initiate with that chin nod before your head even leaves the floor. Let's finish one more just like this. Just kind of getting used to that chin tuck motion, used to flexion. And then let's try that with your legs tabletop. Find your imprint, lift your legs, knees bent, nod the chin, flex up. Now we're stabilizing imprint here, going up and down, keeping that low back, glued to the mat pretty much, and feeling the ribs knit down deeper to the mat as you curl up each time. You can also do this with hands behind the head. Up to you, whatever feels nice for your neck. Now I mentioned we're going to do an active hamstring stretch. So for those, let's just try to straighten your legs as much as possible. Totally fine if you've got to bend the knees a little bit. Then maybe you have your hands behind the head and you just curl up, reaching your forehead towards your knees. You can also do this with your fingers reaching up, and you can actually reach up towards your ankles. Feeling like you're hollowing out your belly as you lengthen up each time. We'll just go for 3. Getting some nice upper abdominal work. Last couple. Pretty sure that was the 3rd, but maybe one more bonus one. And then give yourself a mini break. Next, heading into scissors. Even more of an active hamstring stretch. Let's flex ourselves up first, then lengthen the legs as straight as you can. Then we're going to scissor one leg away and then change sides. You can either grab your top calf with your hands and pull your leg in a little bit deeper towards you, enhancing that hamstring stretch, or you could just leave the hands behind the head, or you could do this just with the head down. You have lots of options. No matter what option you take, abs are working hard. If you wanted, you could even add in a little pulse to this, opening the legs, pulsing deeper, open, pulse deeper. Little sniff exhales as you do that. One of your classic Pilates movements here. Let's go 4, 3, 2, and 1. Lower yourself down, maybe rock side to side. Breathe. We've got one more thing for your abs. We're going to combine your scissors with your oblique twist. So instead of just simply scissoring your legs through center, we'll have hands behind the head, and then as you go to scissor, you'll reach your opposite hand up and across to that top outer ankle. Join in whenever you're ready. Exhale, open and reach. Inhale as those legs pass through. Flexing up a little bit higher as you reach across. And you're opening that opposite elbow and armpit towards the floor next to you. Can you keep your body weight centered through the hips too? I know I'm giving you lots to think about. That's what Pilates is all about, lots of thinking. Last one, and then lower down. Just kidding, that's not what Pilates is all about, but we do focus so much on form, getting the most out of what we're doing, so it ends up being a lot to think of. But guess what? Your brain has no room to think about anything outside of Pilates right now, does it? All right, now let's counter all that flexion and ab work with some extension. Go ahead and just flip right over to your belly. And I'll get you to start here with your forehead just resting on your hands. Your legs will be turned out laterally, so your knees and toes face out, and your feet will be about mat width apart. Now, I'm gonna stay propped up a little bit just so that I can talk to you more clearly, but also if this feels better for you to be propped up, if it feels better on your chest, you're more than welcome to. Let's just make sure though that we tuck the tail down. That way the glutes are on right away, the pubic bone's rooted. Then just lift one leg. Lower that leg down, change sides. We use our exhale to lift. The rule of thumb with breath is exhale during the harder phase of your movement. As we're doing this, our goal is not to lift the leg up as high as possible, but instead, how high can you lift while keeping equal weight between your two hip bones? It might not be a big range, but notice how much more your glute is squeezing as you focus on that stability. Equal weight between those hips. Notice the core turned on even a little bit here. Make sure your legs are staying straight. You're really going for reach, reaching out of your toes. Worrying more about reach than you are on height. And we'll just go for another 4 like this. 3, 2, and 1. Then let's add in the arms. I'm gonna turn my body a little so I don't hit the wall. Arms straight in front of you, head hovered a couple inches off the mat, and your neck is straight, so make sure you're not sticking the chin out, you're looking down. Palms turn to face in, thumbs face the sky. Then hover one leg with your opposite arm. Change sides. Core is tight. You've got equal stable weight between those two hips. And we're getting into a nice overhead range of motion. Pilates is all about balancing out the body. Our hip flexors tend to get really tight. Our chest tends to get tight because, of course, as you know, we're always folded over. So this helps to counter all that, opening up through the shoulders and the hips, while also strengthening and sculpting a beautiful booty. Let's go for another 4. Shoulders are staying level here, just like hips are staying level. Last one. And then just rest down for a second. Okay, then let's just take a quick shell stretch. Sit the bums on the heel. Sit your bum on your heels. Push the floor away. And maybe sway side to side, whatever feels good for you in that shell. Okay, then we've got some work to do on your hands and knees. So, 4-point kneeling. Spread the fingers wide, wrists directly underneath your shoulders, hips directly over top of your knees. From here, before we do anything, just sink through the shoulders and then push the floor away. Now, as you do this, try to avoid doing it to the full range where you round your back and then arch your back. Keep your spine straight as you go up and down. Very small. Find a gentle tightness around your waist to help you to keep the spine straight. And I just want you to notice what it feels like when you're sunk down versus what it feels like when you're pushed up. Now, for most of the time when you do 4-point kneeling work or plank work, you'll stay pushed up, just not to the point where you're rounding the whole back. So you're pushing the floor away. That will help to support the wrists a lot more. Now, tighten through the core. Let's just start here by only opening one arm out to the side. Bring that hand down, change sides. We use our exhale as we open. Can you keep the integrity between those two shoulders? Watching that there's no tendency to sink. It's a smooth transition side to side. Now, as you fight to keep it smooth, can you feel little tiny tugs in your waist as you open and close those arms? Fighting to keep your body weight centered and even. We'll finish off one more like this. And then let's leave the arms down. From here, just reach one leg straight back behind you. Put that knee down, change sides. Watching that you're still not sinking in those shoulders. Using your exhale as you reach out. And just like what we did while we were flat down on our bellies, we are not going for height and lifting as high as possible. You might be able to get up really high there, but then it turns the exercise into a back exercise, which is not the goal. So instead, how far can you reach that leg back? And how level can you keep the hips? You're using that strong exhale to connect into your waist to prevent the low back from sagging down and arching. Keep the belly button drawn up and away from the floor. This is a really great thing to do if you happen to have maybe a yoga block close by, or a toning ball if you have Pilates props, or even just a book. Literally anything that's really small and fairly light. Put that on your back and see if you can keep that stable as you alternate sides. That's the real test to know if you're doing this right. I always like the cue of having your favorite drink on your tailbone and you're not allowed to spill a single drop of it, especially if it's valuable alcoholic beverages. Can you even do that while reaching one arm straight in front of you? That will be easier to do if you choose to reach one leg first and then add in the second arm. A little bit harder to do if you do it all at once. So if you're feeling wobbly, maybe start with the leg, then add in the arm. Let's just go for one more per side. This is a very simple, very common exercise, both in the Pilates world and out of the Pilates world, but for good reason. Let's take that prop off, sit back, shake out the wrists, the shoulders, whatever you want to do. There's a lot of good work to be found there and a lot of mind-body awareness to be developed with such a basic exercise like that, where there's so much focus to keep things stable. Now, let's do a bit of side lying work. You can leave that prop off to the side if you did throw one in there. Lie down flat on your side. And we'll have the legs long. Bottom arm cradles the head, or you can have the bottom arm straight with the head rested. Or if you do have a yoga block, you could put the block underneath your head. Whatever feels most comfortable for you. For me, it's just a cradled arm. Now, I'd rather you not be propped up onto your elbow because that cinches your top waist and it lengthens your bottom. And I'd prefer you to have equal length on each side of your waist. Let's bring your heels back in line with your bum. Hips are open. You should feel a little bit wobbly if you are in a true long line. Now, try to tighten through your waist, picking the bottom waist up off the floor. You've got a little mouse hole space, I call it, underneath that bottom waist. Core is engaged, and that's gonna give you feedback. That's why I don't like people propped up. I'd rather you down low because you'll feel if that mouse hole space tries to collapse at any point. Now, keeping that core tight and engaged, lift your top leg and then lower it back down. As you go to lift, are you losing your mouse hole space? We're not trying to kick here like Jane Fonda, lifting the leg as high as possible and getting many hip cracks while we do it. Instead, we're just lifting to the point where we can hold that little mouse hole space present and keep the hips stacked and stable. Exhale as you lift. Inhale as you lower. Also being mindful here that your leg's not going in front of you. Your hip flexors want to get involved and help out with this. And instead, you might imagine if there was a wall behind you, drag your heel up and down against the wall. Keep the core engaged. Only lift as high as you can keep those hips stacked. Might not be a big range, but it's an effective one. We're just gonna try 4 more. 3, 2, and on your next one, hold that leg covered, tiny circles. 5, 4, if you need to hold onto the floor, by all means. Then switch directions. Core tight to help with that balance. 3, 2, 1, lower down. And if you're smacking your butt right now, that means that I've done a good job. Let's flip it over and switch sides. That's how I always know in an in-person class if I have worked them hard enough, is when people start smacking their butts. Bring your heels back in space. Tighten up through your waist, find that little mouse hole. And then how high can you lift while keeping your mouse hole and while keeping your heel back in line with the back of your bum? At least that's what you're thinking of. Exhale up, squeeze into the side of that hip. Chances are, if you're brand new to Pilates, and especially if you're brand new to working out in general, really, you probably have barely ever really felt this muscle in your life. It's one that's often neglected in the fitness world, I find, but that's why we work on it so much here in Pilates. We're strengthening through the side glute, your gluteus medius. That muscle is super important for stability through the whole body. It often, if it's weak, it often relates to low back pain, knee pain, ankle pain. And you don't even know that it's the cause. The cause is the glutes unless you see someone like a physiotherapist and they tell you that. So it's really important to keep that muscle strong, even though it burns a ton. Let's now hold it up. Speaking of burn, you've got your circles. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, reverse. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, lower yourself down. And then let's just flip right over to your back and we'll do a quick figure 4 stretch there. Go ahead and cross one ankle over the other knee. Bring that knee away from you. Maybe try flexing that top ankle too. This might be all you need. But if you want to stretch deeper, grab that opposite thigh and hug the legs in. Then you can maybe rock side to side there, whether your foot's on the mat or your legs are hugged. We'll take a big breath. And then let's change sides. Open that knee, maybe rock side to side. Maybe you're hugging. And one more nice deep breath. All right, with that, I think we'll call it a day. I hope you feel good. I hope that you learned a lot, and I hope your head is not about to explode with all of that information. If you forgot everything that I just said, no worries. Like I said earlier, you're going to pick it up more and more as you keep going. This is just your foundation to start to learn all that encompasses Pilates. It might be overwhelming at first, but I promise most of my workouts will not be such a learning curve with so much information packed in. This is just the basics for today. So I hope to see you again soon. Give this video a like, press subscribe and comment, all of those YouTube things. And that way you can see the next time I post and we can start to build our community here. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and I hope to see you again soon. Bye.